Hi everybody, Fay Semple, spiritual geomancer. I just wanted to come on today to talk about this chicken and egg relationship we have with earth energy. That there is this belief that earth energy is out there, it exists in its own entity, which it does in its own right, but that somehow it's separate from us. And I want to just look at that a little bit more in depth because personally, for my work, I don't believe that's entirely the case. I think we're in a very symbiotic relationship with earth energy and on many different levels. So many people will be familiar with the concept of the earth grid, that there is this grid network of lines that permeate the whole world, circumnavigate the whole world and permeate the world. And it will be in sort of all different sort of formations. So if you look at the Beth Hagen's grid, it's basically the earth energy represents really the geometric structure in energy form that holds the planet. So we notice that earth energy lines correspond to mountain ranges, valleys, sacred places, and it's the sort of the very geology and geography of the earth mirrors this geometric shape of a sphere that has to have this grid network for a sphere to occur. So things like the platonic solids, represent this. So there's this grid network. And many people as energy lines, not everybody, obviously, as there's something out there. But energy lines also interact with us and we interact with them, and they interact with their environment and they change a lot and they're malleable. So for instance, one of the common standing stone positions is over two crossing streams. Now here's the surface of the earth, say, and one will be there and one will be there. But if you look at them on a plan view, they will be crossing. Now that crossing point gives rise to certain energy formations above ground that these standing stones will anchor down. So its energy rises above ground, it can be detrimental. And then the stone size, position is quite important to anchoring these energies down at particular times. So these energy formations change with the lunar phases, they change with the seasonal phases. So we've got to make sure that the stone is big enough to anchor down this detrimental energy when it is at its most potent. So I used to look at these energy formations a lot as a child because they fascinated me, because they move, as I say, with the lunar phases. They expand and contract with the times of year, and they change shape. So what I became really fascinated was that what comes first, the standing stone or the energy? So the ancient stones that I looked at had obviously been there for a long time, and they mark these points. But what I noticed was that when we put certain objects of a big enough mass, they attract water underneath them. And then that creates these energy formations. So underneath the very rural part of Ireland I lived in, there were a lot of stone gate posts, quite big, that they hung the gates from. Many of these had attracted streams underneath them, and many of these had these energy formations within them because of the quality of the stone. So volcanic rock particularly has a high piezoelectric charge, so it harnesses this energy in it. But this energy isn't just energy in itself, it responds to our consciousness. So if we scale that up, I can, for instance, interact with the energy line in my location. I could go to a standing stone, I can have thoughts and feelings, and these energy lines respond to my thoughts and feelings. But then if we scale that up en masse, these energy lines respond to the thoughts and feelings of societies, of nations, of humanity. So they're all a lot of these different lines, channel or harness or pass down the sort of energy fields that we create when we think. So when I look at human auras, it creates these toroidal form structures that are in our aura. They're not quite our heart fields, that's a slightly different field, but nested within it is this other thought form field, these toroidal forms of energy moving around this toroid that is our thought forms. And then this thought form gets carried in like a replication of itself down the energy lines. It's fascinating to watch. So we influence the energy lines, but also interestingly, you get a corresponding field of energy come back from the ley lines, the energy lines, because the energy does talk to us. So energy lines, I like many others, there's a plasma link. They're the electrical currents of the universe embedded in this geometric structure that makes the Earth. And that structure is conscious, so that when we think and interact with Earth energy, we can say to it things like, well, this is the world I would like to live in, one of harmony, one where we work with nature, not against it, one where we respect nature, not against it, one where the things we do in our lives support us becoming fully autonomous, sovereign human beings, where we can contribute to the world. The things we do for our careers, again, enable us to be sovereign and autonomous and contribute to the world and help other people. When we have that thought, that is what gets traveled down the energy layers, and that is also what other people pick up on. When we have negative, aggressive thoughts, that gets transmitted around the world, and other people pick up on that, and they can get negative and aggressive, or they can get fearful in response to that overriding negativity. And I don't want you to just think about big lines, because we concentrate on things like the Emperor lines, like the Mary and Michael line, the Belenus and Ellen line, the Apollo and Athena line, big lines that circumnavigate the world. But they are like the motorways. You get roads that come off them, and smaller roads that come off them, and lanes that come off those, and byways that come off those, because there are grids and lines everywhere when you can see them. It's like a laser show everywhere of these swirling energy forms, often in small toroidal forms, a bit like so those are like the local ones, whereas right up in the stratosphere you get these huge coils that go over the Earth, and they're like big plasma coils. So we're looking at on scale. So even if, as I said, this is why we say that, your own negativity has a ripple effect. It does. And this grid network, I've been seeing, has been changing as the Earth is changing, because the universe is a conscious being. The universe, it's not really almost like whether did God create the universe. It's like the universe is God. It is an intelligent being in its own right. And we are part of that. So like an ant colony is almost like its own intelligence, and the ants are a little tiny part of that. The universe is an intelligence, and we are a little part of that. So we contribute to the learning of the universe. So the universe is always learning and growing. And within that are the galaxies. And within that is the Earth. And within the Earth is with us. So these are what I talk about, nested energy ecologies, like Russian dolls, one within the other. So although we're having an individual experience of I'm Fay, and this is my life, and these are my ups and downs, they contribute to the knowledge bank of the universe, because my consciousness is part of the universal consciousness. So, but the universe is growing in its own right and developing in its own right. And we have to keep, it's almost like catching up with it in our development. So the Earth grid is changing a lot at the moment, as the universe and the Earth itself is changing into higher a different sort of dimensional energy, or different vibrations of energy that we are feeling. And that requires us to run and catch up, if you like, or keep up. So some of us will be thinking, we will move through this challenge. We think, great, I can be more grounded in the Earth. I can be more focused on my purpose and my mission in life. Some people will fight against that. And this is where we will see tensions in human societies. So the Earth grid could potentially, I've mentioned in a previous video, will create seismic activity in the Earth itself. So earthquakes, volcanoes, fault lines, having rumbles, to what degree, I don't know. But it'll also create seismic change within societies. And I think, so we're seeing that on the political stage at the moment in the world. We've got wars, we've got rises in extremism. And people now want to, a lot of elections coming up, people want to make that change. They want different governments, they want different people in power, because the pendulum swung that way, and now we need to start swinging it the other way. So we need to be an active part of this change in how we conduct ourselves. So Earth energies are out there as a force in themselves, but the really important part is how we weave them into our own life, how we weave them. When you've got energy in your home, it's how you weave that energy into your familial and personal lives. It's also how you weave that energy into your civic responsibility and your career. It's how you weave that energy into your spiritual life. What world do you want to create? So it's not out there as sort of a static objective force. It's like the raw material for creating reality, because it's made up, essentially, I think a lot of these lines at their core are plasma. So they're this highly charged currents that we register on the electromagnetic scale. Some of the earth lines are sound waves, but you're back into the realm of, everything's on a frequency. So with these shifts, that we're going to see seismic activity in the world, we'll see seismic shifts in society. Our role as individuals now is to navigate through this. So in ancient societies, we erected sacred sites, stone circles, henges, all sorts of structures to create stabilized energy fields to help us create the world we then lived in. We needed healthy people. We needed healthy animals. We needed energized water. We needed crops that were going to get us through the winter so that we could survive. We needed, we needed to make sure that our people in this community were safe. We wanted to, use it for our spiritual needs. Who am I? What am I here? These are the eternal questions that people have always asked. These are the needs that people always have, no matter how civilized we perceive our society of being. A lot of it is a thin veneer. We need to eat, we need to clothe, we need to procreate, we need to find a higher purpose in life. So the structures that ancient man made were suitable for that stage of life, where human development was. Now we need to think about how we're going to weave these energies in a contemporary and appropriate manner into our own lives. Because we are undergoing a seismic shift in humanity, and we are undergoing a change as a species, that the human species, I believe, is evolving. So I've always had this ability to see earth energy and other energies. I used to joke that I was a throwback to some maybe ancient times. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm also what the world may be becoming. Maybe more people will start to see the energies that I see. I can't say, I don't know. I only wish I did. But what I do know is that the energies that I see are changing. And because they are electromagnetic in quality and like plasma quality, and we are an electromagnetic being, and we too ultimately come from plasma. We come from the building blocks of the universe. When these things changes and we are in this system, we have to change. It's not a choice. It's not something we can opt in or opt out of. We have to change. So it's how we as individuals navigate this change will help steer societies towards the future that we want to see. And I think, we're in for some big changes, I think, as we evolve over the coming epoch. However long that will be, I don't know. But, evolution takes time. So it's about, things might feel stuck and difficult and challenging at the moment. You might feel like the world is upside down. Things are crashing around you. Everything's changing. It's not the world you knew. It's not the world you thought was going to be here 10, 20 years ago. Why has the world changed the way it has? The world needs to evolve, but we steer. Earth energy and cosmic energy doesn't create our future. It's there as a building resource. We can use it to steer our lives. So we can use modern sacred sites or ancient sacred sites to find out, we can go there and listen, what is my purpose? Because you're born now at this time for a reason. You chose to be here at this point of change. You came with a mission and a purpose to contribute to this change. So when we visit sacred sites, for instance, depending on the type of site, we tend to have in some sites external visions, experiences about what's going to happen in the world. And at other sites, we have internal experiences about what that's going to mean for me. So we tend to have external experience. So when we're on sites that are open to the sky, they're high. We tend to have internal experiences when we're inside something, like inside a chambered cairn, inside a dolmen, when we're in the bowels, the womb of the earth is when we ourselves have internal experiences about us. When we're at a site that's open to farther sky, we tend to have psychic experiences about something's going to happen in the world. So we have a long history of doing this, and I think it's quite important that all of us who are interested in earth energy, try and tap into these sites to find out what our purpose is. Because it's all very well going and dowsing at sacred sites, going, I had a lovely douse this weekend, while the world around us burns. We don't want to see that. We want to be adding our consciousness to this energy line so that humanity as a whole can find a safe and peaceful route through to a different future, because change can be hard to navigate. And as I said, some people will want to move forward, and some people want to cling on to the power, the resources, and everything that they have. So if we're looking at, as I originally got back to, which came first, the chicken or the egg, which came first, the energy or the henge, then we have to realize that this earth energy is very malleable, it's very responsive to us, it has its own consciousness, and we can use this energy to create the life that we want to see. So in my geomancy program, Genesis, for instance, I teach people to use the energy in their own homes and surroundings to create and build the life that they want to build. But we need to be doing this, I feel, en masse at the moment. Everybody needs to be working with these energies to find out, what did I come here to do? Because I can't wait for somebody out there, some politician or somebody else, to save the world. We are in a world at the moment where there is a large cohort of elites who have less than savory agendas when it comes to human species. And we need to be really mindful of that, because what we don't want to find ourselves is shepherded into a reality that we don't want, because we weren't an active participant of creating the thing that we want to see. And how we engage will be making sure that we understand our purpose, that we create families and relationships and networks that enable us to embody that purpose, that we engage in things that support our livelihood, that nurture our sovereign being, because that way we can give our gifts to the world. But we can't, I'm going to say, it's going to be not enough to sort of not do anything. Whether it's simply you gather a group of people and meditate on one of these sites and send, powerful energy down these sites that will help you open up also in response, because it responds to it. So if you send powerful energy down these lines, corresponding wave will come back, and that's what helps us open our mind and start to have psychic experiences. It's earth energy that does that, because it stimulates the neurochemistry of our brain. The same as you could take psilocybin and have an amazing experience, but the same effects can be produced by earth energy when we use these sites at the right time and in the right place, that they will stimulate the right neurochemical reaction in our brain for us to alter our state of consciousness. This is why sacred sites are important, because that's what they do. And they also hold a stable sort of frequency to enable us to talk to other consciousnesses where the discrepancy between consciousness won't burn us out. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's say I wanted to talk to a goddess, Venus, and there are sites that are aligned to Venus, and there's kind of an interaction between when the sun is when we can see, there's an interaction in plasma coils out there in space, basically, that I can see. And that's my opinion, because I can see these things going on, and it's to do with light reflection and a few other things. I'm working on a theory of this, and that enables sort of like the plasma coils of that create Venus to interact with the plasma coils that create Earth, and there's like a wormhole thing, and so therefore we're able to talk to the goddess Venus at that time, and we can have a sense of her presence. She might manifest, but that's the consciousness of Venus itself. So we can work with these sites, sacred sites, then enable us to bridge that gap, because my consciousness is, my physical being is the vessel for my consciousness. My consciousness is more than my physical being, but my physical being is one of the ways in which I experience consciousness, because I wouldn't experience the consciousness that I have without the body. But if I'm going to talk to a consciousness much vaster than mine, so much more powerful, there is a huge discrepancy in energy. So it's like, you wouldn't plug your hairdryer into an electricity pylon because your hairdryer is going to blow out. So it's the same. We have to have a mechanism for bridging the discrepancy between what is the frequency of my consciousness and the frequency of a much larger consciousness. And what sacred sites do is they create a stable frequency or a stable environment in which these discrepancy can be bridged, so that I can receive information and guidance from consciousnesses that are much larger than mine without blowing the tiny fuse that is me. So there are places in the earth that we have always recognized as being sacred. And there are many places that out there in the earth that don't have any markers on them that have the capacity to be sacred sites. They just haven't been built upon, but we know that they're special. Some of them are completely unknown. Nobody's even aware that they're there, because there are many sites. But it's important for us to find somewhere in our own lives where we can go and we can tune into this network, either as individuals or as groups, so that we can have this is the world of peace and love that I want to see, that honors nature, that doesn't try and pillage the earth as a resource, that tries to work together to support each other at whatever stage people are at in various different cultures or societies around the world, so that everybody can have a fair crack at the whip of their own personal evolution as part of this evolution of the earth, as part of this evolution of the universal consciousness. So we recognized, I think, very early on that there were places that we could do that became our sacred sites. And we also recognized that by building structures, we could attract the energies that we could replicate what were essentially native. All right, there's natural sacred sites that just happen to have these different coming together of energies, of water and energy layers, and we recognized that probably millennia ago. And then we realized that if we can replicate the structure of a mountain using a dolmen, or if we can replicate the structure of whatever using standing stones or a stone circle, then we will attract these energies and we can create a sacred space. Because every society or every tribe, in effect, or a grouping of people needed a sacred site, so that their leaders could tap into this information field that is the quantum information field and say, right, this is where I need to lead my people so that they are fed, happy, wealthy, secure, and we have enough food and we have enough animals, and we can start to gain a surplus. Then we can start to trade, and we can make everything better. So it is let's say the original point was there is a chicken and an egg. There are natural sacred sites, and then we went about recreating. So a pyramid, can, in essence, it recreates a lot of the energy features that we see in mountains, or volcanic mountains, with the lava flows and the caverns. Pyramids, natural, obviously, volcanoes are sort of utilizing molten rock. Pyramids may have well have used highly charged water to push through these chambers to work with the consciousness of water, but generate power. Who knows? So we really need to look at how we're utilizing the earth energy meaningful in our lives. And yes, go and meditate on it, and use crystal grids and send positive energy down. But if you get the chance, think about really definitely how could you use this energy in your life. And that may involve putting up a small power tower, as they're called, or something in your garden. And mini liths are great because you can build small scale replicas of big sites, but you can do so in your own garden. And that still taps you into this bigger network. You won't get such a massive, strong experience as visiting a big site, simply because the energy is more tangible. But it's like homeopathy. Your one drop will have a massive effect if you're using these sites. So that's what I wanted to come on and talk about really today, in a bit of a rambling fashion, was that there is this chicken and egg. There is energy out there that we recognize that makes me feel great when I'm in this place, Oh, I know. That will be a special place to go, a natural special place in the mountains. It's a grove, it's a riverbed, it's a high mountain peak, but I know when I'm there, I feel great. And then at some point in time, we're like, how can I replicate that energy in this environment that doesn't have those features? So if I bring in the right stone, the right material of the right size, can I attract these energies to it? Yes, I can. So that principle still stands. We could still use earth energy as a huge driving force in our society, but the more people that tap into it, the better, because it will help us as individuals unlock our human and spiritual potential. It means we can bring our gifts to the world to create the society that we want to see and we want to live in. And on the wider spectrum, then have a knock-on effect on the world at large. And we will contribute to the universal mind that is always growing and developing. And each of our lives are a part of that growth. So yeah, earth energy to me is a wonderful thing. It's not something static that's out there. It is basically a raw resource that is energy that we can turn into some kind of form. And that form can be anything that we want to create. We can help the plants and animals that we care for, or we can create real impact through our civic responsibility. But earth energy contributes to our whole way of being because our aura feeds into it. We feed into it. It is one of the things that nurtures us, just as food, air, just as earth, air, fire, and water nurture us. Earth energy, the ether, the magic fifth element, Terry Pratchett, fifth element is all what nurtures our inner being, our human potential. So the quicker you learn to work with it, the more you can express yourself in a meaningful way in the world. So that's what I wanted to come on in a slightly rambling fashion and talk about today. So well done if those of you who stayed with me. I am running also an Earth Energy Masterclass soon. So that's coming up. So I'll put the link below. So if anybody who wants to join, get signed up. Because we'll be having 3 days of live coaching to help you work really meaningfully with earth energy and understand its impact on you. It is not an abstract force. It is around you all the time, and it is awash with influences from past and from other people right now. So the more we can work with it, the better the world will be. So I do hope you're doing with that. I'll put the link below. So I hope to see you in the masterclass.